This is the Kubeflow community meeting for the 25th of February 2025. As usual, there's a code of conduct. I'm not going to read everything out, but you can read it on the screen right now. It's pretty much be nice to each other. Is there anyone who's new to the community who wants to say hi before we start? We've just kind of started doing that at first part of the meeting at the moment. So I think there's a few people in the meeting. I think maybe some new people. I think if you want to say hi, feel free to.
Yeah, hi, this is Deepak Khitwal. So
Cool. Awesome.
Deepak?
thank you.
Anyone else want to say hi? Maybe, maybe not. If not, then I think someone wanted to say something. So what was that thing you wanted to say, Maddi?
I saw an email from the community that there are coming webinars in summer, and I want to present some of my university projects, which I'm using Kubeflow components for them as a use case. Is it possible or not?
I think you should reach out to whoever sent the email, I'd suggest. I don't know who exactly sent it, but probably just reply back. You can reply directly to it, I think, rather than emailing everyone as well.
Yeah, you can, Marty, you can comment on the GitHub issue, that Amber link, and we can follow up there. And that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Just a little bit of question on this. Thank you for this, Marty. Like, do you, like, what are specific use cases you have in the university? How do you use Kubeflow there? Can you give us a little bit of overview?
For example, for one of courses, I built some MLOps full cycle pipeline, which people could train and retrain models. But for this webinar, I would like to present maybe some specific part of it, like training or optimization of parameters with trainer or CATIP for some, I don't know, industry. Actually fine-tune a model with some data, something. But
do you deploy the Kubeflow instance in the infrastructure, or are you just using individual components? Like, how do you manage the infra in the university across different?
For the previous project, I deployed everything from the manifest repo. I built a custom help chart for that, and I use also Argo CD for that.
And how many users do you have?
I didn't have any user. It was just a university project.
I see. Makes sense. Yeah, I think it would be nice. I mean, we could never speak with Amber, but I think we should maybe allocate some time in this meeting as well for you to present it. So we'd love to hear more about your use case and how it helps you.
If you're ready to present something, of course, you don't have to present it on the cuff.
Of course. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks for this.
Thank you, Marty. That's really great to hear.
Andre, you wanted to add something? Is this more of a lead agenda thing, or is this a?
I mean, it's kind of a community update. Do you want to, discuss it after we discuss the GSOC and other updates?
Yeah, I mean, GSOC is still pretty lead at this point because we're still very early on in that process. But if you think this is more relevant to everyone, just go ahead, because people drop off the meeting as the time goes on. So
yeah, I just feel like it's kind of related to GenAI discussion that we have. So yes, we have a kind of initial conversation with PyTorch folks in our recent training working call. I think it was really interesting discussion with them to see how we can leverage TorchTune for our trainers to actually allow people to build the blueprints and recipes for fine-tuning Kubernetes. So I think Shao already updated this proposal. So if you want to get involved, please take a look. And also, I will share the recording with our discussion with TorchTune folks. So overall, the outcome was they support multi-node, which means it will be feasible for us to leverage Kubernetes for multi-node orchestration, because the majority of examples PyTorch has today using Slurm, they don't even use Kubernetes. So I think this is the good opportunity for us to kind of democratize Kubernetes for AI and more kind of for LLM fine-tuning workflows. This is why I think we should work closely with them to see how we can give each user a platform or a service where you can quickly see the power of Kubernetes for those workloads, right? Yeah, we had a few open questions there in terms of user experience, like how the API should look like and other things. So we definitely looking for ideas on UX, and if you have any kind of thoughts or suggestions, please let us know. because like we just try to see how we can propagate configs from, you know, from our Python SDK to TorchStune to the Kubernetes cluster, right? Yeah, so any questions? Maybe any things you want to ask us from this?
So what's specifically being proposed on our end, or is it for us, or is it on their end?
Yeah, so we will use TorchStune as the trainer for fine-tuning. So basically, rather than, you know, like user has to define everything by themselves, they can just, you know, use pre-configured recipes and configure the parameters they want to adjust, like, you know, LoRa, config, quantization, number of epochs, learning rates, other hyperparameters, right? And we will use TorchStune to actually kick off those jobs on Kubernetes cluster, if that makes sense. TorchStune basically
From the
abstractions
training.
on top of. Yes. Yeah, TorchStune is just abstractions on top of Torch Run, which is abstractions on top of Torch Distributed, which is basically using the PyTorch distributed library for communication between the nodes. Yeah, but TorchStune has like some sort of set of recipes they provide to, you know, just you don't need to worry about how to define this loop by yourself.
Are they not designed for Kubernetes though?
No,
that what you're
no,
saying?
they don't even use Kubernetes at all right now.
They use
So,
Slurm.
yeah.
I mean, you can kind of do some of that stuff with the MPI operator then, right? Or is that
MPI, so no, like basically by default using equal like NCCL for the, you know, node communication, right? And I think like you can use MPI as the backend, but like we don't see use cases really like where MPI could be useful here. Because MPI, like there is also like kind of additional abstractions on top of Torch, like deep speed, for example, right? And deep speed require for you to run MPI. But I guess like if you're just using the Torch run, you don't really need MPI here.
So I guess
Yeah.
there's obviously the question of like, obviously everyone has different tools. There's hundreds of different tools for every piece, but like we do kind of have a tuning piece of Kubeflow already. Obviously, training operator is tuning is part of training, I guess, kind of. But I'm just wondering, like that is kind of like Katib is kind of overlaps a little bit with that. I just wonder what.
Yeah, like I
think
mean,
there.
like in, you know, in the life cycle, like, you know, KDIP or optimizer or whatever we can call it, it's mostly kind of like, you know, how you optimize your hyperparameters, right? Like if we define the scope, like, you know, the scope of fine tuning definitely should be belongs to trainer or like training operator, right? The scope of, you know, like parameter optimization or more kind of like optimization should belongs to KDIP, right? Yeah, we don't want to overlap the scope there.
I mean, I think definitely we need a cohesive story about distributed training with Kubeflow in general, but maybe with training operator. And do you feel like we don't have that right now, or do you feel like?
No, we have it. Like we definitely can choose. I mean, people already use it for, you know, training foundational models, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
Andre,
Like
there's an update for you on that one. So I have some exciting news.
Yeah, we already have a use cases, right? When people use it to train those models, right? Like the large models.
So what are we doing differently? That's kind of what I'm trying to get my head around there.
The problem is Kubernetes is not yet like mature for, you know, ML. Like
Well, I mean,
many companies bet on Kubernetes, right? And right now we see a trend that Kubernetes, you know, emerge for, you know, like for kind of like ML overall, MLOps, but it's still not there yet, right? I mean, there's still kind of, you know, Meta doesn't use Kubernetes. I mean, probably they
sure.
use somewhere, but it mostly,
yeah, they do somewhere. Yeah. But
mostly like they don't really use Kubernetes because of different, you know, like challenges there, right? So
They're not using it for training.
yes.
That's the precise point.
I think training at the hyperscaler level is quite different than training at every other level. Obviously, and of course, Kubeflow should meet the needs of hyperscalers and foundation model builders, but it should also meet the needs of anyone using foundation models and using other training, like you're saying with fine tuning. And so what I'm trying to understand is the goal of like, because this is an external project that we don't control, right? That you're just then adding a dependency on. Is that kind of correct?
Yeah. So again, the scope of the trainer or like previously training operator was to, you know, like address all the stages of, you know, training life cycle, right? Right. We have pre-training for foundational models, also have post-training, which is fine-tuning, right now. So we kind of like see how like those distributed capabilities can be useful for different stages, right? Majority of people do fine-tuning today, right? Because they don't have enough, you know, compute to do pre-training, right? But there are still kind of like traditional ML use cases which we can also solve, right? When people don't really require the foundational models to begin with, right? So this also can be addressed, right? Yeah, but overall, like the entire scope of training, right? I think should be part of the trainer by itself, right? And the trainer could be part of your broader MLOps pipeline, right? This is how like KFP comes to the picture, right? Because KFP can orchestrate all those, like workloads within the end-to-end ML experience, right? It could be Spark, it could be, PyTorch, and other things that you need.
Yeah. It feels like to me like the value provided by training operator is that it provides an abstraction to run distributed or any kind of training job as a CRD or whatever else on Kubernetes, right? Whereas obviously without it, you have to build your own scripts and do your own things to either run on Kubernetes or run on Slurm, right?
Yeah,
And so like we should be able to help people migrate from Slurm or their own custom scripts to training operator if they're not already using it, right? And so I guess as long as like I'm on board with anything as long as that helps. But what do you need from the rest of the community? And yeah.
I think there's more of an update to just raise the awareness that this is happening, because I think there's a really great opportunity that we're collaborating like with PyTorch on this, and hopefully it's an opportunity where we can influence maybe Meta as well to start leveraging distributed training on Kubernetes. Is that a fair assessment, Andre?
Yeah, definitely. And like
why not Meta
Kubeflow.
specifically? I hope, right? I hope we're trying to influence everyone.
Yeah,
No, I mean, like,
everyone, but because of the PyTorch community, that's a massive distribution aspect is really
yes. And there are like another stage, like we kind of like heavily depends on the PyTorch ecosystem by itself. And like it's kind of like challenging to manage the PyTorch, like the torch run on top of Kubernetes, because it has its own level of fault tolerance, for example, right? Like you have to leverage the fault tolerance on the torch run side and have a Kubernetes scheduler, right? How to make these things play well together, it's not a straightforward task. So I hope by discussing with Meta folks, like we can actually improve the PyTorch by itself to run on Kube, right, on Kubernetes, because there are definitely a lot of things which kind of like needs to be like designed and improved, right?
So just a quick question there: are we interacting with the Torch community or Meta?
the Torch.
So Torch run contributors, I would say.
I know, but like they're kind of similar in some cases, right?
I mean, not only Meta contribute to PyTorch, right?
Of course, but like this distributed training, I'm just wondering, is related to that. How are we interacting?
Like,
I'm just trying to figure that out.
So here, I'll share my piece here, because IBM actually is a part of the PyTorch Foundation, and IBM built their foundation models on top of the Kubeflow training operator. And so I think that there's a really great opportunity for us to kind of make this work seamlessly across both frameworks, and so that we're kind of able to be impactful with both communities. Because surely not everybody in PyTorch is going to want to do distributed training using the Kubeflow training operator, but where we can make that experience better than us engaging the PyTorch community, I think is an impactful thing that again will probably also help people move more towards Kubeflow training in general.
Yeah, like in general, like just one last thing. I remember previously, like around 2021 timeframe, we've even like contributed some sort of etcd support for Rendezvous, like etcd2, like basically like how we can make sure like the nodes can communicate within the distributed environment. So this is what we've done previously when we ask PyTorch community how we can do elastic training, right? And that is like before then, like I think we were one of the first communities who kind of like port elastic training on Kubernetes. Then PyTorch created this kind of like Torch Elastic, right? And Torch X, I believe, right? And this communication, I think right now is kind of like worse than like a few years ago. So I think we should just, reestablish a new connection, especially like how, like where PyTorch ecosystem is going towards to. So I think like at the end, we should basically our community should build a better relation with other ML ecosystems, right? Because by a very long time, like those two communities stay separate, right? ML folks and cloud folks, right? So how to stitch them is kind of like should be probably our like one of the goals of our community, right?
I mean, we should just be as generic as possible, right? And then we should make examples, because we're not just for PyTorch, we're also for TensorFlow, we're also for other things. Like I want to make sure that we're not like focusing on any particular, because the industry moves very quickly sometimes, and like our goal is to be the way that you run any AI on Kubernetes, right? And do training and stuff like that, presumably.
I mean, that's true, but again, like without strong collaboration with ML communities, we can't do even one thing very well.
Yeah, right? I'm on board with that. I'm just saying, like, let's not exclude, like, let's say TensorFlow as a result of any collaboration. Is kind of what I'm more saying. So like, and then it raises the question of like, is a generic abstraction that supports both better and things like that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because what if another thing comes out, you know,
And
like, and whatever else.
we actually thoughtful on this, right? So for example, like I'm discussing with Salish and other folks from Nutanix, like from Jonas' team, that in the future maybe we'll support Nemo, right? NVIDIA Nemo for fine-tuning rather than using torch tune, right? So we have this opportunity to support more frameworks, right? It's more about like what users actually want. Sometimes they don't know what they want, but we try to communicate with users to see like what kind of like low-hanging fruits we have to enable them, to enable it for them, right?
Cool.
All right.
Anything else
Yeah,
you want to add there?
yeah, I think we can move on. Yeah.
So I just wanted to highlight for everyone that we've updated the website on the GSOC page. Technically, like a lot of stuff was merged before there was a lot of community discussion. Just want to highlight that because we kind of missed the deadline with GSOC because we needed the page up. So a lot of stuff ended up there that wasn't like discussed completely and is not fully spec'd out. So the page is here now. If you are a contributor or are interested in mentoring some of these projects or another project, the way it works is that we don't know how many projects will get allocated by Google. Once the application's open, so what happens is this page is up, the students see this page, they submit applications in April, I believe. Yeah, April. Before April, sorry, from March 24th to April 8th. And then we receive all those applications as a community, and then we interview the people that we would like to interview. And sometimes they'll apply for things that are not projects, and that's fine too. We can accept those people as well because we're ranking kind of candidates that we want to have, and then from the top, we can choose to not take as many as we ask for as well. That's allowed. But what we then have to do is rank them as a community and say we think these projects are the most important ones, so we definitely want to get this student. Of course, the student could also have another alternative option as well, so we don't necessarily guarantee that we get it, but you should talk to the student when you're interviewing them to make sure that they're, well, yeah, you've got to see it from their perspective. They want to have multiple options as well. So then once we do that, then we will get a response from Google saying, okay, you've got 5 projects, 6 projects, and that's because it's actually a funded thing. Google does pay these students. So I just want to highlight that some of these projects are pretty under-spec'd, and I think a student would struggle to write a proposal based around them. So if you actually, if you really want your project to get accepted and have good applications, don't write a crazy spec. Just like write enough and link them off to the issues so that they can read about it if they're interested. You don't want to have like hundreds of pages on this website, but yeah. So other than that, there is some discussion around specific projects, but I won't go into that publicly right now. Is anyone involved? Is the
But I had a question. This time I'm seeing in the eligibility criteria that it's not open to just students. Anyone who is an open source beginner can participate as well. So is
Yep.
that the condition?
Yep, so I've linked the requirement in the eligibility page here. So Google has their own definition of what that means. This is what they mean by that. An open source beginner is someone with minimal open source experience. Technically, they, just as a quick side note, just because a professional developer is excluded as also. You're not, if you can be like an early professional, but like if you're a senior engineer, it doesn't matter if you've never contributed to open source, you're not allowed to participate. But obviously, but this is what they define as a student because, like, technically speaking, the goal is to get junior engineers involved in open source. That's kind of the goal. But last year we had mostly students, I'd say.
Yeah, most of the times, yeah.
So if you want to
Students
add anything there as well, I do have one concern I just want to raise publicly, without drawing any attention to anything specific, is that like obviously we will need primary mentors to be assigned to them once we've actually got projects approved. Obviously, technically, well, that's not how it works. You actually interview and then you say, I'm willing to mentor this as a primary mentor, and that's what then gets ranked on the Google admin page. But I think we probably do need to have some requirements for the mentors. Like they need to be associated to the project strongly. I think they do need to have previously contributed code to the project. I think it is a bit weird if they haven't. As a primary mentor, as a secondary mentor, I think it's fine to have them. But
yeah. Sorry for interrupting, Matt. You can add 2 things on your first point. So from my point of view, I think the primary mentor should be the member of Kubeflow.org, but I think in general we should not stop other contributors to help us with mentoring because
absolutely
there'll be new folks who want to explore Kubeflow, right? Kubeflow ecosystem.
So this happened last time. Yeah, what I'm saying is just the primary mentor, the one who's like responsible for the project. It's just very difficult to be I think it would be difficult to be successful in mentoring without having that engagement to the code contribution base.
Yes, other thing I want to make like from my also perspective, all projects should go through CAP, like through proposal process, which will need get approved by the community. Like we've done this for training operator and faculty before. I didn't see the similar process for other projects we've done last year. So I hope mentors can also go through this.
I think that would be a good requirement. I think last year some of the projects were just kind of internal to some working groups, so they didn't really, they weren't really that relevant. But I think for any that are like changes, because like we don't want to use these projects as we have to maintain these things after the students leave, right? And they have to be useful, and they have like we've had this problem before where things get added to the project through GSOC and then they're not maintained because no one's there to maintain them. And I think is that kind of partly what you're trying to get at, Andre?
This is also, but like more importantly, we should get an agreement what we're going to contribute, right? Especially if it affects kind of significant API changes. Yeah, but eventually, yes, like maybe user stories why it is needed, right? I think it's not also better for us. I think it's more better. It's probably better for you, for student, right? Because we've done this process for other student. I think they see how this this Kubernetes enhancement proposal process looks like. It helps them to see like how they should think about around design, what they're developing, how they think about the users, right? What about the features? So it's not only about the code, but mostly about the design, because for many use case, design is more important than the coding, right? Coding is easy, right? But this part is kind of much more complex from my perspective.
I think there is something to be said that like we also need to make sure we don't give people projects that they can't reasonably do. Like you have to think of them as a junior engineer, right? That if you're mentoring a project which is like build an entirely new thing, that's definitely beyond the abilities of a junior engineer. Like that means either you and your working group are going to have to do it, most of it, and they're going to be taking on tasks, which is what, it's fine. That's a way of doing it, but that's how it can't be like, oh, this student is responsible for delivering a new feature of Kubeflow, unless that feature is very contained, And I think that should be part of like, rather than just a kept process, it should be like, what is the student expected to contribute to this thing? Because it's like, Notebooks 2.0, we had a student on it last time. Obviously, there's like 25 full-time engineers working on Notebooks 2.0. Clearly, one student is, while important, is not going to be contributing to the whole thing, right? So. Yeah, so how do you want to run that, Andre, is what I'm saying. And Ramesh, obviously, who's involved in actually the admin of the org for GSOC.
Sorry, I got moved to something for a brief minute. At least for the mentoring side, this is what I'm suggesting is I need at least one primary mentor who is responsible for evaluating the students. That's very, very critical, right? In a timely fashion. So as far as actual mentoring goes, you guys can decide how you guys want to do. So that's one basic requirement I have from the GSOC side, who can take on the primary mentor role. That does not mean he is the only one who is mentoring the student, but he is the one who is doing the evaluations of the student. That's what we want. As far as the code, how you guys want to run the KEP or project proposals, I leave it up to you. That doesn't, and I think the interview process last year, I feel that worked well for us, right? There were a lot of people, there were a lot of applications last year, so that we were able to we will filter those applications down after the meeting. So I think I would still support me doing that. Yeah, those would be. Yeah, I don't know how many. I don't how many allocations we will get. I suspect. If I would expect at least a minimum of same as what we got last year. So let's say let's assume we're gonna get about 10 again. So
Also, we also need people who are committing to be a mentor to actually show up and regularly
Right.
meet with these people and actually mentor them, because like it's a job, right? It's a bit of a job, right? And if we don't do that, then we'll get kicked out of the program as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Students
I
review
think we have.
us.
I think we got at least from rough show of hands, we got good number of people, in my opinion, there. So I'm not, at least right now, I'm not too concerned about that. If we do get a student, I think there may be somebody more willing to do that. But at least right now, I'm saying there is enough. There's people who have reached out to me privately, asking them to mentor, asking for asking if they can mentor. So the one requirement I've been saying to the who want willing to be a mentor is if they are not already involved in the Kubeflow project, in the component they are doing, at least have submit a proposal, or latch onto the proposal that's already there that they want to mentor on. And maybe a component leads can say, yep, give a nod for that, and go from there, right? That's rather than somebody arbitrarily saying, hey, I want a mentor for XYZ project, which you guys don't have a good understanding of what that mentor brings into the team, and so on and so forth. So the approval of the mentor is also, I'm leaving up to the component leads.
Okay, cool. I guess we should probably move on. Has anyone got anything specific that we need to talk about there? Not in terms of students right now. Obviously, if you're a student, look through those pages, and once we're ready, we can accept applications. But
yeah, I will again I think there were a couple projects. I think we got it in due to the time crunch without much details. So if you guys can take time in because this is going to start in next couple in a week or so, students going to start looking into very actively, right? Because student application starts happening. So if there is any, as you're saying, Matthew, if there is any way we can go back and amend the page with the little bit more details, that would be great.
or scoping some of the projects down from
Yeah.
being crazy large projects to being more specific. Yeah, like it's both ones that are under spec and over spec, I think. But
Yeah, and if you have another, if there is a new project we want to still add, that's fine. Go ahead and add it, because I needed the initial list for them to, as a threshold to get us in as a accept as an application for us. So I think we are there. If you have more ideas, don't think that this is done just until tomorrow. If there is another idea you want to put a project proposal in, go ahead and do that. But once we get approved, I think we need to keep it locked in, because we don't want to confuse the students adding and removing the projects from there on.
cool. Francisco, I would love you to respond to this.
Okay, so I think I'm going to read the statement that we posted on GitHub so that there's no ambiguity, because I think it's important. And the KSC spent time discussing this, and we came up with a thoughtful communication on purpose. And so I'm going to read it. The KSC discussed over the past several weeks and conclude that we will use neutral language in documenting our deployment practices. Production is a loaded term that has different meanings to different audiences. So point one, which was, we agree not to build or promote any specific way of deploying Kubeflow platform. This does not apply, as we will not use production in our language, as again, production means different things to different people. Point two, we believe there is value for the community in creating a conformance program to give precise clarity on what the Kubeflow platform actually means, and what it means for distributions to call themselves Kubeflow certified. And point three, we do not agree that Kubeflow manifests are not intended to be used in production without manual changes, as this is up to users. We will communicate that the Kubeflow manifests are a collection of community-maintained manifests without qualification. You can see that in the PR that's referenced. And we will trust our users to choose what they want, and we will encourage the Kubeflow community to contribute to simplifying the community-maintained manifests, as outlined in the GSOC proposal. And so I want to be very, very clear here that our goals with this are really, to to foster a healthy way for people to easily deploy Kubeflow, and also make sure that we support commercial interests as well. And so we want to make sure that Kubeflow community flourishes. We think this is the best way to do that. And again, it's neutral language.
So it sounds to me like you're planning to have an official deployment method, because you've said we're not saying that we're not having one. Because the only point in point one is that we don't have an official method. And I just want to highlight one important thing, though, is that I think the word production may have been the issue here, because the issue really is around support.
So
Like-
open source software and you know, is open source. Support is also a loaded term. In the Red Hat context, that actually implies indemnification and broader investment, right? So like we actually have like really strict, thoughtful policies of what support means. In open source software, there is no support, right? Like the software is, you know, freely made and maintained by contributors, you know, so like.
But that is a support policy. And I don't think a user would inherently believe that just by looking at the Kubeflow project, what the level of support is.
We trust our users to understand that when using open source software, it is open source software. And that I think our communication, you know, has been shared. That is our current view. You know, I think that's sufficient for today, and I think we close this topic.
More to add, right, regarding the official. See, I think as written, we will try to be neutral in the sense we will not claim official versus non-official, etc. Right? Again, it actually has all the different meanings. But again, it is not true that it can be quoted as, for example, Kubeflow manifest to be quoted as non-official, because this is actually supported by community, right? So what I'm trying to say is it should not be quoted as non-official, and we will not use official versus non-official for the same purpose.
Yeah.
So
Also,
this is kind of where
we,
I was,
yeah.
you go.
Do you want to go first, Matthew?
No, you go.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think like as Francisco said here, we kind of try to create several issues to see how we can simplify this kind of get starting with Kubeflow experience, right? Especially like, you know, how we view Kubeflow manifest as the first starting point for folks to explore the entire, you know, like components, right? And again, for any additional kind of, you know, not production, I shouldn't say production, but kind of any additional kind of, you know, complete ML, like complete platform, it's kind of like obvious that users probably should do all the things by themselves, or they should go to distributions, right? Because we only like serve the specific components of Kubeflow to address the specific problems that we're trying to solve, the challenges, right? MLOps challenges, right? I think this is back to our discussion in 2020 when we kind of creating these distributions. I think Jeremy also proposed this, that basically installation of Kubeflow should be, you know, like customize deploy TFP, customize deploy trainer, customize deploy Katib. Right now we have a set of dependencies, and the bigger part is multi-tenancy. So I hope like the community can propose some ideas on how we could actually make this more kind of microservice driven, you know, like, and kind of the component can be self-contained without this kind of, you know, a layer on top, which is like, you know, should be deployed, right? Because like if we work together towards simplification, I think it should definitely helps us with the performance as well. Yeah, go ahead, Matthew.
I just wanted to highlight, like, I'll also address what you just said first, which is like, I think there's some parts that are inherently useful, which are opinionated. So a platform contains auth, which is, there's a million ways of doing auth. Of course, we use OAuth stuff and integrations, but you can integrate with like 100 different platforms and different ways of doing things. And so those things are inherently going to be opinionated. The thing I'm trying to protect the community from is any particular way of using Kubeflow becoming the only way people use Kubeflow. Let's say Amazon is just the best way to use Kubeflow because the official manifest maintainers might work it there. They don't. That's what I'm saying. And so maybe that's what happens. And then so therefore, all other platforms get neglected either intentionally or unintentionally. And that hurts adoption of the platform as a standard for Kubernetes, because we're not the Amazon platform or the whatever platform. So that's kind of the motivation here. Like it's not about making it so that someone can make money by making it difficult to make Kubeflow deployed. It's not that. It's that as a community, it's unlikely that anyone would be incentivized to make a generic support everything platform, like
But
every
we should
target.
yeah. But we should make our components pluggable, right? We should make sure like it is easy to plug in auth, right? It is easy to plug in other, like service mesh, Cilium, not Istio, right? It should be easy for us to switch components in a way that distributions can, manage them. Right now, it is not, unfortunately, right? Because we have like strong dependency on different components in upstream, right? And the problem is not because Kubeflow manifest, it's a problem because of Kubeflow pipelines, Kubeflow notebooks, Kubeflow, Katib, right? We have a strong kind of dependencies. So how we can make this portable and extensible, I think this is how we will attract more distributions, and everyone will win from it, right? At the end.
And I think,
yeah,
Matt, and what I'd say is that how this is communicated, and maybe your intent is that like there isn't like single distribution consolidation, I think is what you just said. I think we're supportive of that, right? I think that reads slightly differently than the messaging here, right? I think we don't want just one distribution. We don't want one way to just deploy things. So we would agree with that. But again, the scope of this is to state that there will be a community maintained way to deploy Kubeflow. And
that's fine. And I kind of neglected to treat the fact that I wasn't when I said distribution, I was not including the manifests. So like when I say not official, well, okay, I used the word deploying Kubeflow. Okay, I used the word deploying Kubeflow rather than the word distribution. But the thing that I think, if we're going to have manifests because they're the base of other distributions, right? That's obvious, right? But they're also a way to try out Kubeflow. So there's this tension there.
I think
the thing users need though is I think they need to know these questions. Like, and it doesn't need to be in a warning. It could be in an FAQ. It could be anything. I think we need to be explicit though about what level of support for the platform, like deployment, is being provided by the community. And if the support is none officially, then that is an answer. That is a valid answer to this question, but I doubt it's none. I think it's more likely to be for kind deployment and testing.
No, but Matthew, I think isn't that same for every open source project? I'm saying like what is so special about Kubeflow here?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because the answer could be like let's think of the possible answers to that first question. So, what level of support? The first option is that you're on your own. It's like the Linux kernel. The Linux community is never going to support you to create a Linux distribution. Maybe the answer is that we guarantee that it will work, not guarantee, but say that it will work on any kind cluster that is up to date. Maybe we say that it will work on any Amazon cloud cluster.
No, to that exact same question, right? Like, for what difference do you see Kubeflow from any other open source distribution? I'm just curious because I haven't seen this kind of wording in any other place, right? Like, why should someone explicitly state that like it is not supported or you have to pay for it? I'm saying like, why do we need to them? It is clear, right? When it is community maintained, it is very clear.
But the different, it's not. I don't think to an unknown. It's not that it's not clear that.
Matthew, I think we're comfortable here with the communication we've made. I don't think we intend on qualifying any support policy. We explicitly discussed that. Because
I don't think you said support. I think you said official. I would like to know specifically around support because I have users.
Sorry, maybe I missed it.
What's that?
Like, did you say official way to deploy Kubeflow somewhere?
No, we didn't say anything, right?
Maybe I missed it. Like, where?
What I'm saying is, you effectively said we will have an official method by saying this.
Where are we saying we will?
Well, because you said this point does not apply. So this point here was we will not have an official or supported way of deploying Kubeflow. So you said we will. That you've said no.
No, sorry. I think you misunderstand this, right? We say that it does not apply because it said about production usage. Like there will be no concept of production in our community. Right. This is what we try to say. Like we will never speak about production on any kind of
that's fine
of deployment.
Yeah.
So that still leaves the open question though around support. Like what? Because the danger is that the community cannot sustainably support every target platform. That's kind of what I'm saying.
And this goes back to Jonah's point where we don't need to qualify open source software with the support policy. It is open source software. And
at very least the manifest should have an intended use though. And that's kind of where I'm coming back to this. Like, even if we just say we're not going to qualify, which I think is a bit dangerous, like, what
So
are the
again,
use cases of the manifest? We need to list them out.
Kubeflow,
Like, when I'm a
yes.
user,
Yes, sorry. Like this is why back to my point. Kubeflow manifest should be just a bundle of every application, and we should get rid of common apps that we have right now there somehow.
but
Like we
that's an
should.
opinion, right? That's something that needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
They see, even like you and I disagree on that.
So yes, then we should. I mean, we can discuss it and propose some ideas, but maybe we should even get rid of, platform wording at all, and not some, have some sort of, MVP that users can try out, but they will still be responsible to, build this auth and other things, right? To run this in production. So there could be like different ways of how we can deal with it, right?
So
Yeah.
I know that we've spent quite a bit of time discussing this now. I understand the importance. Matthew, if you want to have a separate discussion about this, we can schedule
Because
time.
that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I think you've made a statement about
But
that we won't use the word production. And I respect that, absolutely. But I think there is some unanswered questions specifically around use cases and support.
Let's follow up async and discuss this.
Yeah, I think there are also just some limitations. For example, we always will have to somehow integrate the manifest from all working groups and see how they work together. So there will always be some kind of common layer and common integration testing. We can reduce that common layer. I'm all in for that to get rid of what we can, but you can't eradicate it completely. If you just make it a collection of the manifests from the working groups, then what's the point of having the repository in the first place? So there will be some glue to keep them together. There will be some integration, even though we try to keep it lightweight, I would say.
And I think these are the discussions that, like, we need to just be explicit, because as a user, if we can't even agree on what these are for, then how can I, as a meta, whatever, say,
No,
I want to use the manifests?
So these are two different discussion altogether, right? And then what we are talking about is all about the support and official production, etc., right? And then is it that clear? Like, do we have any confusion there?
The reason why it comes up is because these 2 points connect. And so the reason why I'm asking them together is because if there is a platform that could be deployed almost anywhere, it then raises the question of, since I could choose to deploy it on Google, Amazon, local, whatever else, where does the community push back and say, oh no, at this point you do need to make your own distribution that modifies the manifest. We're not going to upstream, let's say, support for a workaround on Amazon or Azure, for example. Like, there is workarounds to get it to work on AKS right now. They've got some weird thing called the admission enforcer. Like, does that live?
As a community, we shouldn't even get there, right? I'm saying, like, this is not our problem as a community, right? Like,
But we do have the manifest repo, and that's the problem, because
Yes.
people can use it.
They can force what they want and then do whatever they want there. So I want to time box this because there's only 8 minutes left, and there are other items that the community wanted to discuss. As I said, let's discuss this further.
Yeah, we can have a discussion. Yeah. But I just think it's a bit risky, though. It's what I'm saying. I think this is where I need the community to agree, because it really affects the investment of external parties in the project.
I understand.
I mean,
do you have a blog? Yeah.
Yes, let's definitely schedule the call if you want to have a follow-up, but I would love for also others to comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Do you have any other opinion, like, strong objections from KSC decision, like what we should do differently? I can see Josh on the call here, maybe any other folks from distributions here on the call.
It's not about disagreement with the decision, by the way. It's just about, I need clarification on a few more points.
Yeah, I understand. That makes sense. But I just want to hear the feedback, like any feedback.
Yeah, and folks also don't feel like you have to opine today. You can also comment on the GitHub or message us directly, privately, any individual member in the KSC or public post on the Slack channel. That's fine. We definitely warrant and welcome your feedback. I think I just want to be mindful of time. Do
you want me? Can we reopen this issue then, so that people can have a discussion on it, or?
Let's leave it close, because I think the point is, when the KSC's made a decision and communicated out, I want it to be clear that this is our decision. We're welcome to feedback and revise the decision, but at the moment we've at least made one decision. I think that helps for clarity as well.
I can at least tell you what I have in mind. And the first thing is regarding all these support questions and so on. We have a website for that, for the support level. We need to update it. Maybe a productive way, I posted into the chat, maybe a productive way is to update the website and discuss this production and whatever things there. And regarding Kubeflow Manifest, only the minimum, I think, we should try to get it running because people will try it out on different clusters, but we are also not, it's always best effort. We don't have the time to maintain it for everyone. If they want that, they shall use a distribution if they want the out of the box complete experience, yeah. But we at least give them a basic MVP that runs on common clusters, yeah, with some
And absolutely,
basic common sense security and so on. But for example, using now heavily switching to AWS S3 integration or Azure Blob Storage integration, I think that's too much to maintain.
but like the thing that I want to also be careful about is things can just be added. Like we need to explicitly say what they're for so that we preclude particular vendors from sabotaging other projects, like other target platforms. Because effectively what will happen is whoever's willing to contribute to the manifest, maybe someone is willing to support Amazon upstream officially, maybe because they think that'll benefit them, or I'm not saying Amazon, I'm just using them as a bad example. But like there is a risk that like there is some intentionality that needs to be there about like we are supporting this, but we're also not supporting like intentionally platform specific stuff.
So distribution, should work with working groups for this more closely, and then working groups should, make a decision there. Again, manifest is just a bundle of working groups work, right? I think if working,
but like if we have an official deployment method that we agree works on kind for whatever reason or anything else, say I'm someone who doesn't want to maintain a distribution, but I just want to have it upstream in the official charts, manifest, whatever, right? And that's where the risk starts.
But I think we have this covered. We have at least Kimonas and me as the current leads of Manifest. We don't have this intention. We don't have anything that is very specific integration into a platform, I would say. It's just not there right now. And I also don't want to include such things that are too strong integration because we then have to maintain them to some degree. So this risk, I think, is in practice just not there.
Intentions are one thing, and I believe your intentions. But defining what you've just said is also important. Like you've just said, we don't intend to do certain things, but like they're kind of undefined terms, right? And I'm not saying this to like try and what I'm trying to do is make sure the community is healthily able to be used anywhere Kubernetes runs, like Kubernetes anywhere of any future or past distribution kind. And I think that as a community, we should that's the beauty of Kubeflow is that everyone can use it. And I just want to ensure that.
Yeah. The goal is I like vanilla Kubernetes, but many people have to deal with AKS, EKS, whatever. So we have to find a balance there, but I'm usually leaning towards kind and basic Kubernetes. And if it's really critical or if this is really something breaking on AKS so that you can't install Kubeflow at all, then it would take a look, for example. But there's some really basic features.
Yeah. I think Conformance will address most of our questions. I think we should someone to drive Conformance, ASAP, because by Conformance we can definitely address a lot of questions we're discussing right now.
Yes, and Amber and folks, and I think you and I and the KSC we've already discussed that Conformance is what we're aiming to start invest with.
Yeah.
So I agree.
I think those are important, but I think that is different. I do think like things could go wrong quickly in the other direction, is what I'm saying. Like there's other aspects of like conformance, absolutely, for the distributions, but that then it makes it even more important that we clarify where a distribution starts and where the manifests end.
So I'm going to at least ask this because I said 9 minutes ago that we were topics. Do others have other higher priority items that they'd like to discuss for the rest of the community? I know, Valentina, you're here. Did you want to give a brief release update? I'm sorry that we waited until the end.
No worries. I think it's Ricardo this time. we'll do the updates.
Okay, Ricardo, I don't think he's on the call still, actually.
Yeah, he dropped a long time ago, I think, like more than half an hour ago.
Okay. Well, then that's all right. I think released Monday the 17th. Okay, first cut. All right. Also,
So when is the RC2, has the RC2 been cut?
No, for what I saw, the plan is to do it next Monday. I don't know, Julius, were you in the meeting? Maybe you yesterday. I can make it, and if you want to add more details.
Yeah, I merged everything except for the KFP 2.4.1 release. There I'm in contact with Helber Bamiro and Hugh Khan. I hope I don't mispronounce the names too much. And we are just waiting for the KFP 2.4.0 release. And then there's, of course, I want to release that on March 3rd, so after the next release team meeting. And then the next big item, I think, is the Docker pull rate limit. And I think the consensus was more or less, we should try to release until March 31st. Probably for me, it will be 29th or so around this weekend there, because afterwards there's KubeCon. But something along the lines to at least have something releasable for KubeCon. Something that we can advertise.
So there is some upstream work that will need to happen for the Docker Hub thing. I just want to highlight it for anyone who's here. Docker is removing unauthenticated pools effectively. You'll have like 10 an hour, which is not enough for anything really. So that means we'll need to move to something which doesn't have a limit. The only thing that doesn't have a limit that's easily available to us is GitHub Container Registry, which is already used by a lot of our projects. So I think, Julius, you went through the images, right? And there's quite a few on Docker, is that right?
Yeah, I have a list of all the images there in the issue. I think it's manifest issue. Yeah, it's linked there probably. So I have a list. I also have tagged everyone. We probably won't get all of them migrated for 1.10. I think that's fine if we get maybe 50% and then the remaining ones in 1.10.1, I don't know, a month or 2 months later. But at least to reduce it such that the likelihood of new users encountering this pull rate limit is significantly reduced.
So I think for anyone who's, I feel like the right answer is to push to both temporarily, right? In case Docker goes back as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, because otherwise, like the tag increments, because people increment the tags. But I don't know. Anyway, we're at 9 o'clock, so what other things are blocking us from cutting that release, Julius? Is there anything or not?
I postponed a lot of things to 1.10.1, so I think it's mainly the KFP and the Docker pull rate limit. And then to decide, can I release with the images tagged as RC1, RC2, or do I have to wait for the working groups to update again and remove the RC suffix?
That would only be for the notebooks working group, right?
I think most of them, some have RC suffix, but yeah, mostly notebooks, I would say.
Because I can cut that immediately once we all have agreed that there's no critical issues. Because we need to do testing, right?
Yeah,
We need to make sure these images work.
Yeah, I would like to, if I cut RC2, we should get at least 1 week of testing or so, and then already prepare for the final release.
Yeah, so yeah, don't cut it with an RC. I can make you a final tag because it takes no time at all to just cut that tag. So, but I want to have some testing before I cut it though, just so that we don't cut it and it's got a bug and have to do another release.
I mean, I synchronized all of that to the 1.10 branch. Everybody is free to test it out. Please provide your feedback. The sooner you do that, whatever users, distributions, the sooner we can cut the final release. And I can also put the milestone into the chat. It's the 1.10 milestone. You can see here, milestone 1. And there's the 1.10.1 milestone for maybe in 2 months or so. I will also post it into the chat.
Cool. Anyway, so I guess the answer is we'll cut a release candidate next week.
Yeah, March 3rd is the plan. I got I think the release manager and some others talked to the KFB guys, and they plan to do it on Thursday. So hopefully it should be safely there by Monday, the KFP 2.4.1 release.
Is that
With clear
Thursday this
expect-
week? Sorry. For KFP, is that Thursday this week?
This is what I understood. For clarification, please reach out to Ricardo directly.
Yeah, sounds good.
And thanks here for the testing. For example, Daniela did the test for these 2 KFP bugs.
Sure.
And do we have a
I-
specific testing plan or anything, or is it just to tell people to look at it?
Should be that
I
part of
think
the
most-
distribution testing.
Yeah, this time the distribution testing is rather short, so we got most feedback from users and Canonical so far. So please test right now. I mean, it's sooner the better.
Should we cut an RC now, or like, because the RC that we've got doesn't include some of the patches, right? Especially on some of the notebooks.
Yeah, but I think the branch, so the 1.10 branch has everything, should have everything up to now, and if not, I will make sure of that in 5 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, test off the branch rather than off the tag.
I can also cut the tag, but I want you to do this. I agreed to do this on next Monday, so but then until then use the branch, yeah.
Cool. Okay, we're 5 minutes over. So, do you want to add anything, Francisco? You want to point out your feast thing again?
That's
Or
just
your blog post.
Just a note to folks to take a look. I updated it to include some more stats about the Feast community. It's very healthy. That's all. And the blog post is actually not by me. It's about this is kind of speaks to the Gen AI story. Andre, I sent it to you. But one of the team members took a look at using CatTib to optimize RAG. It's a great blog post. I've already reviewed it. Wanted to share it with folks here so that they could take a look. Yeah, just was hoping to give folks a feedback on it. In the Google Doc is actually the most updated stuff. There's also a more generic proposal about donating projects to Kubeflow as well that I should link here. But yeah, I will add that later. Yeah, cool. That's all. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Cool. I'll stop the
Bye.
recording. Thank you.